Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I am glad to be talking with author, creator, artist Tatiana Gill. Tatiana, thank you for joining.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
My
Great to
pleasure.
talk. Great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Now, you said that you have a fur friend that we might be hearing from throughout the podcast. What kind of fur friend do you have, if I may ask?
He's a palm mix. Well,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
His name is Prince, and yeah, he's the apple of my eye.
We're a miniature schnauzer family,
Oh,
but
cute.
there are actually a couple of Poms in our neighborhood. So, just it's good to have fur friends. It really is. It really
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Um, so in addition to having fur friends, you also have a number of books that are out. This is another good thing to have in your life. Books are always wonderful. And I want to give appreciation. I wrote down a couple that I wanted to make sure to mention. Living in the Pandemic, Disabused, and Womb Gender as well, which is fun to say. I appreciate the fact that you tell stories in comics format, but they're not kind of the typical, maybe expected story, that there's some processing, some reflection on life that you use your craft and your talents to do.
Thank you.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. How did you know that comics was the space where you wanted to do this kind of work?
I think in some senses I've always known, um, when I was a kid, like even before I could read, I was looking at Tintin comics and sort of, reading the pictures. Um, and loving those. And yeah, just always been a comics person. And as a kid, I think my brother and I were just drawing little strips as like a lot of kids do, like
Hmm.
just sort of drawing rough little comics and stuff like that. And my mom actually picked up cartooning. She got really into the Seattle alternative, sort of underground at the time comic scene. This was like mid 80s. Drew her own autobiographic novel with a lot of
Wow.
similar themes of, like emotional visual metaphors for emotional landscapes, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Great phrase. Great phrase. Yeah.
so yeah, that was very inspiring. And at that point she befriended some like most notably Roberta Gregory, who like lent us a bunch of underground alternative comics. So I started reading
Mm.
those along with, the ones that a lot of kids read, like, Garfield and X-Men and stuff like that. I also had exposure to these alternative comics. So I think that really got me going. But, as like a teenager, I was like, I want to be a cartoonist, but like for Marvel kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then as I grew older, that just wasn't what I was drawing. What I was drawing was these journal comics and, sort of emotional outpouring. And I think at first I started in sort of drawing all kinds of things, but it wasn't a lot of autobi. It was just like conceptual, I guess. Like, oh, I thought of this,
Hmm.
um, high concept comics, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, yeah, and then the older I got, the more it just turned into um, just autobio and then yeah, and some social activism as well. I guess things burning in me that I just have to say,
Yeah.
which is, those are probably the two main topics. It's like things that get under my skin.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's seeing things in the world that you have difficulty with. It's almost like you have to do something with it. So I imagine comics is a really, at least healthy space to do that, and a space where you can then share with people if you choose to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Uh, Anything that you'd like to say? Again, you talked about that visual metaphor for emotional landscape. I wrote that down. I like that. Um, anything you'd like to say about what comics in particular kind of allow you to process? Anything about what the word and the image both kind of enable you to do?
Yeah, I always I just love the medium so much. I really like words. I really like pictures. I like reading books and looking at illustrations and paintings and stuff. But I absolutely think comics is like it brings them together and then it's like greater than the sum of its parts. Like to me, it's just the ultimate medium for um, expression. And I think really visually. Um, but then words help, like if it's a picture, it's like so open to interpretation,
Mhm.
which is great. But like I'm really trying to get my point across. So I think words really help cement that in as well. Um, and then, and that's more, I guess, talking about just like my one panel sort of emotional drawings. As far as like a longer story goes, um, yeah, I think again, it's like visual, but with explanation. And then you can do a longer narrative that's just so compelling to read for me. And I think a sort of I don't think I ever did this on purpose, but I explore a lot of these taboo topics,
Mhm. Mhm.
mental health or like reproductive health or um, even more recently like homelessness, things like that. Um, and I feel like comics, I think they feel to most people like kind of a harmless medium. They're sort of more, um, I feel like it's just really, even things like Mouse, the graphic novel Mouse.
Mhm.
It's this really hard topic, but then because it's in comics form, it's like slightly easier to take on.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that's a real advantage to the medium that I can, do have these scary topics, but sort of draw people in by being like, oh, but here's this like charming picture. So it's not like
Yeah.
so scary.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about the accessibility too, because I always think about like I know I read comics before I really understood the words, but there's also kind of that kind of like welcome. Uh, we can talk about this scary thing together, sort of appeal to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, when you say accessibility, that too of just like, people that it can speak to people that of various like reading comprehension levels as well, or like English comprehension levels, things like that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Now, you might have already answered this at least in part, but it sounds like part of what draws you to particular topics or themes are kind of the things that are under your skin or bothering you. Any other sort of trend that you've noticed in what connects you to a particular topic? And it's okay if not. I have another question I can sub in.
okay. Yeah, I'm racking my brains here. I'm like, that really seems to be the way. I mean, sometimes things are under my skin because I'm passionate about them. Because, it's not just because it annoys me, it's because I really care about it. So I think that drives some of um, that drives it as well. It's not just like the getting bothered. And I think sometimes, a theme can come from can be prompted by inspiration or wait, can be inspired by a prompt. Like, like sometimes I'll do something for an anthology and then the anthology already lines up with my interests, but I'll do the comic for them and it comes out differently than it might just if I was just drawing it for myself.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Curious about a little bit of kind of the creative process. Do you start with like a journal, thumbnailing, and then develop something? Is there kind of a process where maybe it's a short idea that becomes something longer, or what's that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the sort of emotional expression comics, like most of the comics in Disabused, my book
Hmm.
Disabused, which I'm like, this comics in my book Disabused,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, came from getting home from therapy and having this burning sensation and just drawing it out. And then,
Yeah.
months later coming back and inking it and getting it prepared for, a publication. Um, so in those cases, it's really just like one and done.
Mm.
But especially for longer narratives or like more complicated, um, or not more complicated, but like I guess, less emotional, more intellectual comics, like say my comics for Real Change most recently, those I will thumbnail. And yeah, if
Hmm.
it's like a couple of pages comic, it absolutely gets thumbnailed first, unless it's just pure auto bio, like here's what I did today.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and so that'll be, probably just scrawling like almost stick figures and just rough text. And then
Mhm.
I'll go in and do that more carefully. Mm.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I'm always interested in the process and how that changes depending on the kind of project and anything that you'd like to say about what currently has your creative focus. You were holding up Disabused, and if it's okay, I'll actually put some images of the book covers and any art you'd
Oh,
like me
great.
to in the video.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
but anything about what's next that you're thinking about, as well as spaces where people can connect and see your work.
My next book is going to be about my Paxil withdrawals. So that was like a year ago. I went off my one of my antidepressant Paxil, did the correct steps of, had my psychiatrist step in step with me, did a really slow taper, but nonetheless was just completely devastated by it. Like my brain was really nasty what happened to my brain
Mm,
with the withdrawals and, you know, brain shocks and or they call it brain zaps and all kinds of the official term. Um, so I did a daily comic through that journey. And yeah, I plan to make that into a book
wow, yeah,
coming up here. So that'll be my next book.
the
Um,
inner architecture.
yes.
Yeah.
um, and then also right now I'm drawing comics for a local newspaper that is focused on like low income and homeless people, and sold by people who are low income and homeless, and just trying to draw, yeah, comics about, so far they've been sort of like nasty and commentary, I guess, on how awful people are,
Hmm. Hmm.
how awful people who aren't homeless are
Yeah.
about people who are homeless, because I just hear the nastiest comments, even from like, people who are otherwise quite liberal. It's like everyone has this huge prejudice. And so I've been sort of drawing out my anger at that prejudice in these comics. And so probably at some point, if I had enough of them, I would collect those as well. So those appear, monthly in this local newspaper, basically local to Seattle.
Nice, nice.
And yeah, they're also on my social media, which I think was your other question of like where people
Hmm.
can find
Hmm.
me. So yeah, that's all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Or not TikTok, sorry.
It's okay.
That's the one I like never, I'm too old to learn. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue
Uh,
Sky. Um, and then I have a Patreon patron page, um, where I post all my work, and it's not, you don't have to pay to read. It's almost all free. And the only times it's pay is if there's something that I'm not really releasing to the public yet, or it's something I don't want, my family to see or something.
right,
So it'll be behind a paywall because they're not going to pay to read it.
right. Yeah, no, well, glad that you're out continuing sharing the work. And you have a .com, is that right? Is that a space where people can go as well?
Yeah, yeah, that's just my name, TatianaGill.com. And yeah, that's got a bunch of my work and yeah, links to my books, things like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I will share those links. And once more, I'm sending appreciation for what you're doing in comics and using the medium to explore experiences, share experiences, and speak to some really critical issues.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for the time. Glad to have you back anytime as you're working and exploring projects.
awesome. Yeah, well, it was great talking to you, and thanks for the thoughtful questions.
Absolutely. We try. Uh, talk again soon.
All right, sounds good.